Hello, this is the first video of polynomial functions, and so today we will learn a little bit about terminology that you need to know in order to understand some of the concepts that we will learn later on. So the first vocabulary word is degree of a polynomial. The degree of a polynomial is the biggest exponent of the polynomial. So if you have, for example, x to the 5th plus x to the 7th plus x to the 8th, then the degree of this polynomial would be the 8. It doesn't matter if you see it like this or if you see x to the 8th plus x to the 5th plus x to the 7th. Either way, you just take the biggest exponent. Now the leading coefficient. The leading coefficient is the coefficient of the x with the biggest exponent. So in this case, for example, the leading coefficient would be 1, which is the coefficient of the x with the greatest exponent. Okay, so these are two very important vocabulary words that you will use later on to divide polynomials and things like that. Next, we have a factor and a root or a zero. So a factor is another polynomial that divides the original polynomial. Okay, and so by definition, the factor must have less than or equal the degree of the original polynomial. So let me explain a little bit of what I'm saying here. So let's say that you have x squared, and that was your polynomial. And then you also had x. So x is a factor of x squared because you can divide x squared by x and still get another polynomial. So here you can see that the degree of x squared is 2 and the degree of x is 1. So in this case, 1 is less than or equal to 2, which is right. Also, another factor of x squared is x squared itself. Because if you divide x squared by x squared, you get 1, which is also a polynomial. And for instance, 1 is also a factor of x squared. Because if you divide x squared by 1, you still get a polynomial, which is x squared. Now, here you see that the degree of x squared and of x squared is 2 in both cases, and 2 is less than or equal to 2, which is right. And here the degree would be 0, because you can think of 1 as being 1 times x to the 0, and so 0 is less than or equal to 2. Very well. Now our next keyword is root or zero. So the root of a polynomial is a number that makes the polynomial equal to 0. So for instance, here in the x squared example, if you say that x is equal to 0, then x squared is equal to 0. So a 0 for this polynomial or a root, you can say it either way, is 0 itself. So you will get larger polynomials and kind of more complicated, and you will see that 0 is not necessarily a 0 for a polynomial. So and you will see how to factor them out and find what the roots are. But so this brings me to the next keyword, which is multiplicity. So multiplicity is how often a certain root is part of the factoring. So for example, if we were to factor x squared, we would factor it into x times x. If we were to do this, then we would find that the 0 for x is 0 and the 0 for x is 0. So here we find that 0 comes up in 2 of the factors. So in this case, x squared um, 0 has a multiplicity of 2 in x squared.